real stories of werewolves, of Dogman from history, from your emails, illustrated and animated with the democratizing magic of machine learning AI. Welcome to Scary Stories.
Mother Wolfman came back for her pup. Dear Scary Stories NYC, I remember the first time I saw the Dogman mother and her offspring. The morning mist clung to the pasture like a veil, transforming my weathered fence line into something almost mystical. I had risen before dawn, as was my habit since moving back to the family ranch. There's something sacred about those first quiet moments when the world hesitates between night and day. That's when I saw them. At first they were just shadows against the tree line, a larger form and a smaller one moving with uncanny grace along the edge of my property. I froze, coffee thermos halfway to my lips, the steam curling into the cool morning air as my eyes struggled to make sense of what I was seeing. The larger figure walked upright, impossibly so for any normal wolf or coyote, its silver-gray fur catching the first hint of sunrise. Long muscular limbs moved with grace, powerful shoulders rolled beneath a coat that seemed to shimmer between colors in the half-light. But it was the face that turned my blood to ice, elongated like a wolf's muzzle, but with an intelligence behind the eyes that spoke of something beyond animal. And beside it, mimicking its movements with youthful awkwardness, a smaller version, a pup, I realized with a jolt of surprise. The little one couldn't have been larger than a yearling calf, its movements more playful, stopping occasionally to investigate something in the tall grass before the mother's soft growl would bring it back in line. I should have been terrified. Any sane person would have been. But standing there on land that had belonged to my family for generations, watching these creatures that shouldn't have existed, I felt something closer to awe. They either hadn't noticed me or they deemed me unthreatening. The pup stumbled slightly, and the mother, I couldn't help but think of it as a mother, reached down with startling gentleness, using clawed hands that could likely tear through flesh with ease to steady her young. I had heard the stories, of course. Every local had. Tales whispered over campfires about the dogmen that roamed these hills. I dismissed them as the product of too much moonshine and isolation. Now, watching these creatures move with purpose along my property, I wondered how many other things I'd been wrong about in my 72 years. Only when they disappeared into the denser woods did I remember to breathe. My hands trembled slightly as I capped my thermos. The reality of my situation came flooding back. The Social Security check that barely covered expenses. The arthritis that made fence repairs take 3 times longer than they once had. The crushing solitude that had driven me back to this place after retirement. But somehow, those concerns felt distant now, overshadowed by what I'd just witnessed. I finished my morning rounds in a daze. The image of those creatures burned into my mind. Something told me to keep this sighting to myself, not just because no one would believe an old man living alone on his family's rundown ranch, but also because something protective stirred in me. A secret witness to dawn's edge that felt too sacred to share. Fast forward to a few weeks later. The spring air carried a hint of warmth that morning. As I set out across my land, fence pliers jangling against my hip. Over the weeks since that first dawn encounter, I had spotted the Dogman several times, always at a distance, always briefly, like ghosts materializing at the edge of my property before they would melt back into myth. I had come to anticipate these fleeting glimpses, these moments that made my quiet existence feel touched by something extraordinary. I was checking the south pasture fence when a soft whimper stopped me in my tracks. Not the bleating of a lost lamb or the whine of a coyote. This was something different, something that raised the hair on my neck. Following the sound led me deeper into the woods that bordered my property, past the gnarled oak that marked the edge of what I considered mine. The morning light filtered through the canopy in dappled patterns, illuminating patches of forest floor still damp with dew. I heard another whimper, weaker this time, and then I saw it. Curled on a bed of fallen leaves lay the young Dogman, its silver-gray fur dulled by dust and something else. Sickness, perhaps. Its chest rose and fell with irregular breaths, eyes partially closed, revealing just a sliver of gold beneath heavy lids. One paw, so eerily hand-like with its long fingers and visible claws, stretched out as if reaching for help that had not come. "Hey there," I whispered, surprising myself with my lack of fear. "Where's your mama?" The creature's ear twitched at my voice, but it made no move to flee. Up close, I could see it wasn't just a wolf on two legs, as local legends might suggest. There was something profoundly complex in its features, intelligence in the curve of its brow, strength in its jaw, yet vulnerability in its current state that touched something deep inside me. I knelt beside it, conscious of every crackle of leaves beneath my knees. The forest held its breath around us. No birds sang. No squirrels chattered. Just me and this impossible creature sharing a moment of connection that defied explanation. "You're in a bad way, aren't you?" I murmured, noting how its ribs showed through its fur, how its breathing labored. The decision formed in my heart before my mind could object. I'd been alone too long, perhaps, or maybe age had softened the boundaries I once held between possible and impossible, between wise and foolish. "I'm going to help you," I told myself as much as I was telling it, easing my arms beneath its body. The young dogman was heavier than it looked, probably the weight of a good-sized German shepherd, but decades of ranch work had left me stronger than most men my age. It whimpered once as I lifted, then seemed to surrender to my care, its head lolling against my chest. The walk back to the house stretched my old muscles to their limit. Each step became a small victory, each labored breath a reminder of years gone by when such a burden would have seemed nothing. Sweat beaded on my forehead despite the cool morning air. "Almost there," I encouraged, though whether I was reassuring the creature or myself remained unclear. The dogman's fur felt coarse, yet somehow silky against my arms, its body radiating an intense heat that worried me. Whatever afflicted it was serious. Its breath came in short, warm puffs against my neck as I carried it across the threshold of my home, a place that hadn't welcomed a visitor, human or otherwise, and longer than I cared to remember. My bedroom seemed the only logical choice. I laid the creature gently on my quilt, the blue one my late wife stitched during our first winter together. The contrast of wild creature against domestic comfort struck me as both beautiful and surreal. The young dogman's eyes fluttered open briefly, meeting mine with a gaze that seemed to hold questions that I couldn't even begin to answer. "Rest now," I told it. "You're safe here." As I stood watching its chest rise and fall, the magnitude of what I'd done began to settle over me. I brought a creature of myth into my home. I'd committed myself to its care without a second thought, and I realized with startling clarity that, for the first time in years, I felt truly vibrantly alive. I dampened a washcloth and gently cleaned the dirt from the creature's fur, revealing a beautiful silvery gray coat that shimmered even in my dim bedroom light. "What do you eat, fella?" I murmured, my hand feeling the pronounced ribs beneath that magnificent fur. Whatever it was, I needed to get some nourishment into this creature, and soon. In the kitchen, I flung open my refrigerator door only to confront the harsh reality of my situation. Half a carton of eggs, some withered vegetables, some leftover beans. Not exactly what a carnivore would need to heal. My monthly security check wasn't due to arrive for another week, the thin financial lifeline that kept me afloat on my family's once-thriving ranch. I pulled out my checkbook and calculator, performing the ritual that had become all too familiar. Rent money, utilities, medication. The remainder was pitifully small. It doesn't matter, I told myself, this little fella needs to eat. I went to the grocery and I loaded my cart with more meat than I'd bought in years. Chicken, hamburger, a couple steaks on discount. That checkout girl raised an eyebrow. "Having company?" "Something like that," I said, watching my monthly cushion disappear as she rang up each item. Back home, the dogman hadn't moved, but its eyes opened when I entered the room. Something passed between us in that moment, a recognition that transcended species. I cooked up some hamburger unseasoned and offered a small portion on a plate. The creature sniffed cautiously before hunger overcame wariness. It ate with surprising delicacy for something with such fearsome teeth. Its clawed hands with unexpected dexterity. That night, I slept in my recliner, listening to the strange breathing patterns of my unexpected guest. My bank account was nearly empty now, $1.27 to last until the next check, but watching the Dogman's more restful sleep, I couldn't bring myself to regret it. Morning brought a stern email from my bank. New account maintenance policy it announced with corporate cheerfulness. Effective immediately, a $12 monthly fee would apply to all accounts below minimum balance requirements. My stomach dropped. That was $12 I didn't have. I was now overdrawn in an account that only had $1 in it the night before. Overdraft fees would follow, then more fees for the overdraft fees. The cascade of financial disaster played out in my mind like a familiar nightmare. I looked back at the young Dogman who had managed to curl onto its side, watching me with eyes that almost seemed apologetic. I had spent my money on this creature, and then the richest people in the world decided they needed even more of my money than I had. "Don't you worry," I said. "This isn't your fault, and I'll figure it out." Pride is a luxury for those with options. I had spent decades being self-sufficient, but now I faced the humbling task of having to ask for help. My fingers trembled slightly as I dialed Frank's number. We'd worked cattle together for 20 years. $12, he echoed after I stumbled through my explanation. "Bill, I'd help. But Carol's medical bills, I just can't help right now, you know that." The conversation ended with awkward promises to get together soon. Promises we both knew were empty. 2 more calls to people I thought were friends yielded similar results, each rejection carving another piece from my dignity. "It's just you and me," I told the Dogman, who managed to sit up slightly against my pillow. Its eyes followed me with an intelligence that made me wonder if maybe it understood more than I realized. My cousin Martina was the last hope I could think of. She lived 30 miles away, a distance that meant gas money I didn't have for a car that protested every journey. "Of course I'll help," she said when I called, her voice warm with the familial affection I'd been missing. "Can you come over? I've got some extra groceries for you, too." I glanced at my unexpected charge. The Dogman seemed stronger today, but was in no condition to fend for itself. I filled a bowl with water, left out some meat, and hesitated at the bedroom door. "I'll be back before dark," I promised. "Just rest easy." The drive to Martina's stretched my anxiety to the breaking point. Every mile took me further from the creature that had somehow become my responsibility. The rural landscape blurred past my window. Spring green fields that would have once delighted me were now just obstacles between me and my return. Martina, bless her heart, didn't ask too many questions. She pressed $80 into my palm, far more than I'd expected. "Some gas money in there too," she insisted, loading a box of groceries into my trunk. "And don't be such a stranger. Loneliness isn't good for anyone." At the bank, I deposited $20, enough to cover the overdraft and the fees. The remaining cash went into my wallet, alongside the receipt, tangible proof that I'd pulled back from one financial precipice at least. The afternoon shadows had lengthened considerably by the time I turned down my driveway, my thoughts full of my unusual patient. That's when I saw it. My back screen door hanging at an odd angle, the frame splintered and broken. My heart pounded in my chest as I slammed the truck to a stop. Something was wrong. The gravel crunched beneath my boots as I approached my home, each step heavier than the last. The broken screen door flapped eerily in the late afternoon breeze, a jagged wound in the familiar face of my home. My heart thundered in my chest as I pushed the splintered frame aside. I called out, "Hello?" although I wasn't sure what answer I was expecting. The living room looked like it had hosted a small tornado. My worn armchair was pushed askew, the side table overturned, and a lamp lay broken on the faded carpet. But it wasn't rage I sensed in the disarray. It was desperation. I moved toward the bedroom, following a trail of disturbance. A knocked-over bookshelf, my mother's porcelain figurine in pieces, dirt all over the floor. The door to my bedroom hung open, revealing the aftermath of what must have been a frantic search. My bed was empty. The blue quilt my wife had made dragged halfway to the floor, still holding the impression of the young dogman's body. Silvery gray hairs clung to the fabric, tangible proof that I had not imagined it. Standing there in that doorway, a realization washed over me. The screen door hadn't been broken from the inside out by an escaping creature. It had been smashed inward, broken by something desperate to get inside. That could mean only one thing. The mother had come back for her child. I sank onto the edge of the bed, running my fingertips over the abandoned quilt. Evidence of their passage was everywhere, once I knew what to look for. Paw prints in the scattered dust, a tuft of darker fur caught on the window frame, the distinct odor of wet dog and something wilder, something even more primal. She had tracked her pup to my doorstep, broken through my flimsy barrier, and reclaimed what was hers. I should have been terrified at the thought of such a creature invading my home, and yet all I felt was a strange sense of completion. You should have at least said goodbye, I murmured to the empty room, surprised at the tightness of my throat. That evening, as twilight painted my damaged home in shades of indigo, I sat on the porch with a cup of coffee, my eyes fixed on the tree line. The repairs could wait till the morning. For now, I needed to sit with the quiet aftershocks of this extraordinary encounter. I'd spent money I couldn't really spare to save a creature most people would consider a monster, or worse, a hallucination. I'd probably damaged some friendships. I'd definitely damaged my pride, and my house was going to require a lot of money spent in repairs. By any reasonable measure, the entire episode had been a disaster. And yet something had shifted inside me. For a brief moment, I had been needed again. For a creature that shouldn't exist, I had stretched beyond the careful boundaries of my diminished life. As darkness settled over the ranch, I spotted movement at the forest edge. Just a shadow at first, and then two distinct forms materializing between the ancient oaks. My breath caught as they stepped into a patch of moonlight. The mother stood tall and magnificent, her powerful frame silhouetted against the night. Beside her, still a bit unsteady, but unmistakably stronger, was the pup. They paused there, as if aware of my watching eyes. The mother turned her muzzle toward my house, ears alert, golden eyes reflecting the porch light. She didn't growl or retreat. She just held my gaze across that impossible distance. Was it gratitude I imagined in those wild eyes? Or simply acknowledgment? One parent to another soul who had shown care for her young. The moment stretched, bridging worlds that should never have touched. And then, with graceful purpose, she nudged her pup, and they melted back into the shadows of a forest that suddenly seemed both more mysterious and more familiar. Later, when I finally mustered the courage to sleep in my own bed again, I found a single, long, silver-gray fur on my pillow. I didn't throw it away. Instead, I placed it carefully in the small wooden box where I keep my wedding ring and the few other treasures that mark the extraordinary chapters of my life. My bank account might be pretty much empty, my house in disarray, but I felt strangely renewed. The Dogman encounter had awakened something I had thought long dormant, a capacity for wonder, for connection beyond the predictable boundaries of my lonely existence. Sometimes the most profound gifts come in forms we could never anticipate. As I drifted towards sleep, I found myself listening for far-off howls carried on the night wind. Not listening with fear, but with something approaching kinship.
Team Dogman for men of the world, and it also looks cute on girls. The hat says Dogman, I'm happy to meet you, but there's no guarantee that Dogman won't eat you. Team Dogman hat, it's the prescription. The link to get your own is in the description.
I was starting to feel like this wasn't my day. Then I got a donation from Adam Friday. Please join me in thanking one of our coolest and most badass channel members, Adam Friday, for making this episode possible. As a PayPal channel member who signed up at peterbernard.com, Adam gets to see the brand new, secret, uncensored episodes we're dropping this week, including The Drunken Dogman and Dogman versus Sheep Squatch. For more information about how you can help this channel stay online, like the heroic and legendary Adam Friday, here's our international TV spokesmongrel, Henry Lee Dogman. Hank?
Thanks, Biggie. And thanks to all of you for watching this far. If you liked it, please click like. If you'd like to see more of our work, please subscribe. And also click that bell icon if you'd like to be notified when we put out a new episode. To become an executive producer, you can donate to us through the thanks button under each of our videos or through our paypal.me/PeterBernard209 page. To receive cool perks like secret uncensored Dogman episodes far too wild to ever run on this channel, you can become a YouTube channel member by clicking the join button. Or join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. Joining either at the $3 a month level or above gets you access to our over 25 hours of secret uncensored Dogman stories available nowhere else. Do you have a scary story about Dogman or some other kind of high strangeness that happened to you? Let us know by emailing us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or by leaving us a voicemail message at 804-LA-SCARY. You may need to call back on that when it cuts off after I think 3 minutes. And if you don't want to do any of that stuff, thank you for simply watching to the end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.